Welcome back, people. It's more Star Trek, and now we are on season 4 of Deep Space Nine. This is the season where a lot of fans say the show kicks off for real, where things get hot. And I'm here with Pete, I think. Are you there, Pete? His audio's cutting in and out. Uh, well, he's there, guys, and when he pops in, he'll say hi. But before we get into Deep Space Nine, just some Star Trek news. It says that the Enterprise just got a new senior officer. Meet Chief Engineer Pelia, played by the incomparable Carol Kane, who's been in a bunch of stuff. I think Princess Bride and all this other stuff. Um, she's an American actress who's been in everything possible. And she's going to bring a nice touch to the cast, which is already a light cast. So I guess it's going to get even lighter. But let's see here. She was in the Muppet movies. She was in Racing with the Moon, Transylvania 6. I never heard of that. Jumpin' Jack Flash. Heard that movie. Joe versus the Volcano. Even Cowgirls Get the Blues. Addams Family Values. I remember her from that movie. And Man on the Moon, The Wacky Adventures of Ronald McDonald. I don't know. Bunch of stuff. So good for her. Okay. And good for us because we're going to get a new chief engineer, which we need after the last one. Well, if you haven't watched Star Trek Strange New Worlds, I'm not going to spoil it for you. But if we got a new engineer, you can imagine what happened to the last one. So tonight, we're going to be talking episodes 1 through 7. Okay. Oh, Pete just got knocked out, so I think he was having some internet problems. So I'll talk with you guys a little bit until we get Peter back. Um, yeah, so tonight we're going to go with The Way of the Warrior, The Visitor, The Hippocratic Oath, Indiscretion, Rejoined, Starship Down, and Little Green Men. A nice little mixed bag of everything tonight, from the hard hitting to the silly to the envelope pushing. And that pretty much is season 4 onward of Star Trek Deep Space Nine. Let me see what's up with Peter. Yeah, I think he just got knocked off the web completely, guys. So while he's coming back, I guess I will begin. Usually he begins these reviews, but tonight I will begin talking about The Way of the Warrior, and we have a familiar face coming into Star Trek Deep Space Nine, which is very much, a way to attract viewers. You get somebody from the other popular series, or the popular series at the time, which was Star Trek The Next Generation, and you put them right in there as a main cast member, which is Worf. So Worf joins the cast of Star Trek Deep Space Nine from season 4 onward. And when I first watched it, first time through, I didn't know if he would fit in, although it seems like it would be the best place for him to fit in because of how insane. Um, there you go. There's Pete back. How insane the space station is, but we're so used to seeing him in the very uh, correct and stoic environment, which is the Star Trek and the Starship Enterprise. So I wasn't sure how they were going to fit this very strong character in with a bunch of other strong characters, if he was going to take over storylines and bits of drama that would have been set for other characters. But perfect casting, though. Perfect addition, I should say, with Worf going into Deep Space Nine. And as we get through these episodes, I believe that he's better written in Deep Space Nine than he is in Star Trek Enterprise. Oh, Star Trek Enterprise, Star Trek: The Next Generation. So it was a good move for the character too. There's a lot more depth. There's a lot more gray area, and we get to see a lot of sides of Worf that we just didn't in TNG, where he was just kind of like the strong man. Riker and Data and Picard were the brains, and then Worf would just come in to do cleanup duty. So pretty cool. Pete, I'm just starting here with the Way of the Warrior while you were offline, but just talking a little bit about the addition of Worf. But basically, here the storyline, guys, is when things really start to get wacky. It's stuff that Pete has been mentioning about in season 4. You need a notebook to keep up with everything that's going on, with all the politicking going on. And basically, now the Klingons,
Hmm.
before we had the Romulans that were trying to get in on the whole Dominion thing, and now it's the Klingons that are trying to get in on the whole Klingon thing or Dominion thing. Except that they decide, okay, that they want to attack Cardassia, okay, and if they attack Cardassia, that's gonna um, destabilize that part of the region. They're going to be able to be prepared better for the Dominion. And all of this stems from they find out what this plan is after the 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 smoke screen. The smoke screen is they're looking for shapeshifters. They're looking for shapeshifters, and they're being very aggressive in the way that they're looking for shapeshifters to the point where a Klingon ship even detains Cassidy Yates' freighter. Okay, and Cisco doesn't like that. He takes the Defiant out to convince the commander to back off, but the Klingons keep attacking, or not attacking, but searching ships outside of their own jurisdiction. So what does Cisco do? He calls up Lieutenant Commander Worf, okay, to deal with the Klingons. And Worf's been out of commission, TNG ended. So he supposedly he's out like being a monk somewhere. And they call him over and says, look, you gotta figure out what is really going on. Um, and Cisco warns Martok because the Klingons think that the Cardassia, the Dominion are all kind of working together. He's telling Martok, man, what are you trying to do? You're going to attack Cardassia. You're going to cause a really big mess here. You're going to hurt the Federation alliance with the Klingons, but Martok is going to attack anyway. Um, Garrick. Oh, I'm sorry, not. There's a great little scene in here where Cisco needs to warn the Cardassians at what's going on, so he invites Garrick into the one of his meetings and asks for
Yeah, it's
his
a
suit.
lovely scene.
It was a nice meeting. So again, all this kind of underhanded stuff is going on because Cisco's main concern is he does not want an all-out war between the Klingons and the Cardassians. And now we get, and also we have another really big moment in this episode where Goran, my favorite Klingon with the big old eyes, he's he's meme fodder, Gowron. Um, he invites Worf to join in the invasion, but Worf refuses. He's got loyalty to Starfleet, and because he does this, he is totally, thrown out of the Klingon Empire. His family, social status is in jeopardy. And in the end, the Defiant does help the Cardassians who are attacked by the Klingons. And Cisco informs Gowron that the council members are not changelings because Gowron is sure that these folks are changeling. Um, but Gowron doesn't care. He sends a whole fleet to attack DS9 anyway. But DS9 defends itself, destroying a lot of Klingon ships, and the Klingon boarding parties beam into DS9. The crew fights them off, and the Starfleet reinforcements show up. It's insanity. Like for an opening salvo,
Hmm.
first episode, it just blows everything wide open. And by the way, I didn't do what I usually do, which is say that this episode was written by Ira Stephen Bear and Robert Hewitt Wolf and directed by James L. Conway. And it premiered on October 2nd, 1995. Okay, beginning of the fall season. So just a whole lot of everything. And for me, when I first saw this episode, Pete, way back when, and even watching it again now, I get it when people say this is when, season 4 is the season where DS9 finally finds its footing. because to open a season like this feels more like a season ender than a season starter, because
Yeah.
it just blows the can, just blows it wide open, and says, "Here you go. You thought shit was crazy before. This is what we're going for," and it's pretty damn insane. Um, but anyway, that's just a plot outline. What do you think of this episode? Oh,
Yeah, I mean, even before the episode starts, you can feel like they've taken it up a notch. Like the opening credits alone are just like the opening credits just look better. Like
oh
much
yeah, they
nicer
changed the
opening
music a little.
credits.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, and we get that view of like looks like a chunk of ice or something going through the wormhole, but it's a cool. We get the slow zoom in on the space station as well. So that's kind of nice. And yeah, Worf, really nice addition. He just fits in really well. Like he plays, he's the sort of character you think would play off really well against some of these established characters, and it turns out he does. He does.
Yeah, that's what I was saying when you were
And
gone.
yeah,
I, I, I was saying that when you were gone, that at first I was like, is Worf gonna fit in? Because you're so used to Worf in that very stuffy, stoic Enterprise D where you got to follow regulations, and he's perfect for that role. And then I'm like, how's he gonna fit in with all these crazy folks? And my other worry, which is something that happened with Star Trek Voyager when Seven of Nine came in, she took a lot of the stuff away from Janeway. And in fact, Kate Mulgrew, however you pronounce it, and what's her name that plays Seven of Nine? I forgot her name now. Uh, they had a lot of issues for a while. They had a lot of infighting between them, to the point where Kate had publicly apologized for being such a bitch to Seven of Nine, the actress. Oh my God, what the fuck is her name? It's such an easy name to remember, and I forgot it. It's Jerry Ryan. Jerry Ryan. Yeah, but it's understood because Janeway is a strong female character, one of the few in '90s television, other than maybe Scully, who's in STEM. She's awesome. She's a badass. And then they put this girl in a cat suit, which is there just for the ratings, just because she's a bombshell. She ends up being a really good character, but it became the Seven of Nine show, and Kate's like, "Shit, I'm the star of this fucking show. What's going on?" And in a way, when Worf came in, I was like, "Oh, I hope the same thing doesn't happen," especially because he's the warrior, he's the grab him by the neck type of character, and I was afraid that Kira would be the one that would get diminished. But in fact, she's got a lot of great character growth. They were able to maintain her character very well, and wrote him in very well. He fit perfectly.
yeah,
And they
yeah.
wrote.
If there was any character that like he seemed like he would have diminished in some way, it would have been Odo, because they're both like they have the security background, they're tough guys, they're
Yes.
badasses. But I mean, Odo's whole thing being a shapeshifter and a founder, it makes him a completely different character from Worf, even though they do have that same mindset.
And you know what's nice is that everything that you said and I said, the writers put into the scripts. So as we
Yeah,
go on, we see that Worf and Odo clash because they're both security. And Worf's like, "Yeah, on the Enterprise we did it like this, or you're just gonna let this guy." There's an episode coming up where like Odo is actually letting some bad deals go down, but that's
yeah,
because that's how he can catch the criminal. And Worf needs to learn his lesson of how it works on this station. And with Kira too, he he's able to learn from her, and she just her character goes in this really nice other direction because they've been softening her up as the seasons have gone along. So it's cool. Like the writers just did a really good job at not diminishing anybody, and getting Worf to fit in. And also, to your point too, is with his security background and everything, they spend about the first half of this season letting us know that Worf is not comfortable on DS9. He doesn't know exactly how things are supposed to
Yeah,
work because he's used to being on the Enterprise, and he's like, "This is normal for you," And I think he has a
yeah,
nice scene episode with O'Brien where they're kind of, or maybe it's a later episode where they're just reflecting back on the good old days being on the Enterprise. Um, but actually, yeah, it is this episode because there's a quote here. We were like warriors from ancient sagas. There was nothing we could not do except keep the holodecks working right. So that's Worf and
yeah.
O'Brien on their life aboard the Enterprise. So it's cool that the writers did not just forget all that. They didn't forget Worf's backstory, and they made that part
Yeah.
of his character trying to figure out, his life on DS9.
What I like though too throughout his appearances on the show is how he's constantly like telling everyone how smooth everything was on the Enterprise, and they like throw it back in his face, right? Because if things went smoothly on the Enterprise, there wouldn't have been a show, right? Something went wrong every week. That was the
Yes,
whole
every
point
damn
of the
week.
show. So yeah, it's like, oh, the Enterprise was like the best ship in the galaxy. Everything went perfectly, and people would like, "You remember the time when? You remember the time when?" And Worf's like, "All right, enough. I get your point." So yeah, that's a good aspect. But another thing that was introduced in this episode is we get bald space Jesus. Cisco
Yes,
debuts the
finally,
shaved head.
finally,
Yes, so
and
he
that
gets his look back.
yes, and there's a little joke within the Trek community about when Star Trek shows get good, and you got to look for the hair. When it's for TNG, it's when Riker grows that beard. For Voyager is when Janeway loses that crazy bun she had. It was like a gravity-defying hair bun, and then when the hair goes down. And for DS9, it's definitely when Cisco loses the hair. Then it's on. Then it's no
Yeah.
shits given, Cisco,
Yes, yes.
and it's fucking
But
great.
yeah. Overall, as an episode, though, it's a great way to kickstart the season. It had real cinematic value. There's so much going on with the coup in Cardassia allegedly being engineered by Dominion shapeshifters. So the Klingons use that really as a pretense for invasion,
Hmm.
but it turns out no, they're not actually shapeshifters, and this is just a power play by the Klingons. Worf's caught in the middle, and he has some pretty serious consequences for that. Uh, Big move for him. He basically loses his house, is disgraced, and rejected by Gowron and the Empire because he sides with Starfleet. And I think really that plays a big part in his decision to remain with Starfleet because he's already, I mean, he rationalizes it. He's like, there would be no honor in this. But the thing is, he's kind of made his bed, and it's because he had to choose between Starfleet and the Empire. And I think he's figuring, well, if I've lost everything because of that choice, I might as well stick with the reason why I made that choice because I don't really have anything else.
Exactly, exactly, and that's what makes Worf such a nice, complex character in DS9. Like I've always been a Worf fan. He's a cool little character in TNG, but they had some good Klingon episodes on TNG. They're actually my favorite of the Klingon episodes because I just like the whole mythos of the Klingon culture. And Worf was at the center of it, but it was usually that. I mean, that was mostly the thing. Whenever they had a Klingon, a Worf centered episode, it was him. Is he part of Starfleet? Is he part of the Empire? Because for those that don't know, which I doubt will be many in the audience, Worf was raised by human parents. So he's not half human or anything. He's full blooded Klingon, but he was raised by an adoptive
Mm-hmm.
family, and he um, is not, he's sort of rejected by Earthlings because he is a Klingon and they got their ways. but he's also rejected by the Klingons because he has a lot of affinity towards humans. So, but I don't think TNG was ever able to fully dig into that, mostly because of the damn reset button. So, they go on some adventure, and then the next week it's some new adventure, and blah, blah, blah. And whereas DS9, given how it's more serialized, you really get an evolution of what all that means to him. And he just got way more depth and just shot up to like one of my favorite track characters ever because of DS9, and really respected. And actually, Michael Dorn, if I'm not mistaken, a little bit of trivia, I think he's the actor that has been on Star Trek the most because of the fact that he was in 7 seasons
Yeah,
of Trek TNG plus the four of DS9. Well, not the four. It would be, yeah, four, four, 5, 6, 7. So he's all over um, Trek. And one other thing that I like too in this episode is, and by the way, I relate a lot to these stories. I have written on my Facebook page a couple times. Klingon episodes make me cry because I relate to Worf as being somebody that's been adopted, and then I left Brazil very young, and I grew up in the U.S. And then when I came back to Brazil, I'm sort of a person like this that's in between two things. Like I don't feel fully American because my parents were Brazilian, though I love America, and I don't feel totally Brazilian, although I really love being here. So it's a weird place to be, like in this middle ground, and you end up being rejected by both, depending on what you say and how you act. But anyway, I love this little line of dialogue though, because Worf is still drinking prune juice, which is
yeah,
a kind of, coming from TNG. He learned to like prune juice. I think Guinan introduced him to that because it's vile. But then Quark introduces him to root beer, and he's like, "It's vile." And Quark is like, "I know, it's so bubbly and cloy and happy, just like the Federation." You know what's really funny?
yeah.
Enough of it, you begin to like it. It's
No,
insidious.
he has that dialogue with Garrick actually.
Oh, was it with Garrick? Oh my lord,
Yeah,
I thought
yeah.
it was
No,
with.
that dialogue is with Garrick,
Oh yes, you're right. You're right. I'm imagining it in my head now, and it is Garrick because
but it
Garrick
is a
then
great
said,
scene.
just like the Federation.
Yeah,
Um, and we have, of course, the famous "Today is a good day to die." It's a little bit of everything, man. For me, it's
yeah,
amazing that
yeah.
they
And the
stuffed this all
action
into
is
one
pretty
episode.
solid in this too. Yeah,
Who was?
I know. It's a good night. I said the action is really good in this too. Like you didn't
Yes.
fuck around, man. Big space battle, boarding parties, had it all. Ships getting
Yeah, and
blown
even
up.
Worf, target at your discretion, Worf. When Cisco is over there, he's like, he blows that shit up.
Yep.
Uh, and yes, so it's amazing that, like I said, they shoved this much stuff into one episode, but it doesn't feel rushed, doesn't feel overpacked. It's like a really, 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 really good opening. And like I said, it just blows everything open. Anything can go now. And as the series goes on, we definitely get a sense of that. And then we're gonna move right ahead, folks out there in Trekland, to the Visitor. And since I began, I'll let Pete take over on this one. But let me just give a little specs here. Uh, where is it? Where is it? Where is it? There we go. The Visitor, using Jammer's reviews, of course. He gave this one 4 stars. I don't disagree with that. I'm no writer, but if I were, it seems to me I'd want to poke my head up every once in a while and take a look around and see what's going on. It's life, Jake. You can miss it if you don't open your eyes. That's Cisco talking to his son. But go ahead. Oh, and by the way, this was written by Michael Taylor, directed by David Livingston, and it premiered on October 9th, 1995, and it's got Tony Todd in it. So, what do you feel about this one?
Yes. Yeah. So this is Tony Todd's second guest appearance on Deep Space Nine. He played a completely different part in this episode. another one.
Yes, and he comes back again as Worf's brother.
We got Tony Todd playing old Jake. He's living on Earth in his grandfather's old house, and he gets a visit from this fangirl. She's a big fan of his writing, and she's come to ask him why he didn't write more. It turns out, I mean, we've already established that Jake's this aspiring writer, and with thinking positive, that he works hard at it. People like his stuff, so you think he's going to become like this big successful writer. But it turns out that he only like wrote two books, and one of them is like really obscure. So she's come to find out why he didn't write more. And he basically tells her, like, if you'd asked me that question on any other day, I'd tell you to get lost, but you've arrived on a very special day, so I will tell you the story. So the story goes back to the Defiant taking a trip to witness this, like, weird phenomenon in the wormhole, and something goes wrong with the warp drive, and Jake and Cisco are in the engineering room when it happens, and Cisco gets zapped with like a bolt of lightning and appears to get vaporized. So, boom, right off the bat, Cisco is dead.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought they handled that pretty well. Like they didn't just like, oh well, he died. Like everyone's really sad. Like this guy meant a lot. So they paid a lot of tribute to him. But of course, Jake takes it the hardest because now he's lost both his parents, and he's got on this space station. He's got no reason to be on anymore. But at the same time, he's got nowhere else to go. So that was an aspect of this episode that I like. Like, what would happen to Jake if something happened to Cisco? Like, he's got no reason to be on the station, but he has nowhere else to go either. Like, how shitty would that be? Plus, he's grieving for the loss of his father as well. So that was handled really nicely. But it turns out Cisco is not dead. He just keeps showing up for brief periods of time, saying hello, hello, and he can't seem to stay in the current timeline. So it's good for Jake that he's not dead, but it's also kind of torture because he just sees
Yes.
his dad for like a few minutes at random times, and then he's gone. So we follow Jake throughout his life. Things go to shit. The Klingons take over Deep Space Nine because Cisco isn't there to save it. Jake goes on, he gets married, he becomes a successful writer. And then when he sees Cisco again after he's married, he decides to abandon his writing career and go into science and trying to find a way to save his father, basically.
Yeah.
And essentially, what it boils down to is he finds out that Cisco is anchored to him. So as long as he's alive, Cisco is going to like be drawn to him, but he can't stay there. And what he figures out is that if he can draw Cisco to him and then die, then Cisco will go back to the original point in time where this happened, and everything will be reset. So this is
Yes.
why this is the most important day, because Jake has figured out that Cisco will arrive on this day, and he's already done the deed. He's already poisoned himself, and it's heartbreaking for Cisco to see. Of course, I mean his son is dying, but his son's an old man. He's lived a full life, and Jake tells him like, "Look, you get to do it all over again. Like none of this happened, so everything's okay." So it was a very nice sentimental episode. Really, like I think one of the best performances from Sirach Lofton in this one. It's really, I mean, Tony Todd kind of is the anchor of the show, but this is a show that really gave Sirach Lofton and a chance to show his chops.
Yes.
Interesting episode. It had a very Ray Bradbury vibe to it, kind of a little overly sentimental. But I gotta say, ultimately, it's kind of a throwaway. Like it's something that you can watch and appreciate, but really has no impact whatsoever. So not really one of the more memorable ones for me. It's one of those like, huh, okay, that was different. You know, we got to see some actors do some different things. I appreciated the story and everything, but not particularly significant episode in my book.
Well, you are going against the grain because this episode usually ranks top, top, top for most fans.
I saw
Agreeing
that.
here. Yeah, and I agree. I mean, it's just the emotional impact of it. What I love about Deep Space Nine when it's that just going on full blast is one, the Dominion stuff, which is incredible, but when it hits the emotional button perfectly, and then the rest for me are the throwaways. The anomaly, the miniature universe,
Right,
and all that stuff is like whatever. But when it hits the emotional button, what makes these people tick, these characters tick, and we're gonna get into another episode tonight that's all about what makes these characters tick. It's inconsequential in air quotes, but really not because it just ties the bonds of these characters and what they mean to each other. And last week we talked about that episode about the Bajoran ship that Cisco built. And for me, it was almost like a prototype, like a draft version for this. That one went for some of the things that this episode did, as far as that father son connection, how much these two really need each other, the support that Cisco gives to his son, and those things are important for me. It's like it rounds out the characters. It's not just these guys on an adventure trying to stop a war. These are real people, and
right.
that really suffer, and the growth that they have with each other becomes consequential when we get in the middle of the war. A little bit of spoiler going ahead, but Jake Sisko decides to be a reporter during the war, and that has a lot of consequences. But he was only able to do that because of the support that his father always gave him to become a writer. So for me, nah, it's got a lot of emotional impact and a lot of impact for the character. So I rank this one near the top 10 maybe of the series. Um, and man, oh man, Pete, I don't cry often, but motherfucker, man, this one, I didn't cry, but I did get misty eyed. I don't like the old age makeup. That's the only negative
Yeah.
I got. So Tony Todd just silly in that
See,
makeup.
I
Go ahead.
I like the one where they
Oh, you're cutting out. You're cutting out. You like the one where something happens.
because
Repeat that because you cut out completely. You said you like the one. Is it the one where Jadzia gets gangbanged? That's on the
right.
that's in the DVD. What did you
Yeah,
say? You
he's
like
a
the
hard
one
guy
what?
to disguise though.
Which one do you like? Oh, we think it rained a lot here, folks. And when it rains in São Paulo, the internet turns to shit. So we lost we're getting Pete in and out a little bit. But
I like the one where they built the Bajoran spaceship a little bit. The one where
okay.
they built the Bajorans. I like that one.
Yeah, they're
Wait a
very
minute.
similar in theme. They're very similar in
No, I'm
theme.
still here, man.
Uh,
Yeah. No, the one where they built that Bajoran spaceship.
yeah.
Yeah, but the difference is though, like everything that happened in this episode
Mhm.
kind of got canceled out, except for Jake. I think Jake remembers everything, so it's like, well, no, he doesn't. He doesn't though, does he?
No, he doesn't.
Because he
Cisco
dies.
remembers
So
everything.
Yes, yeah, because Jake tells him to get out of the way when he goes back, get out of the way of the energy burst. So yeah, Cisco remembers everything, but everything for him adds up to about 10 minutes. He's on Earth for like 2 minutes, and then he's gone for like 7 to 9
Yeah.
years. So really, nothing that happened in this episode happened, and nobody remembers it. So I think that's why I like the Explorers episode a little better, because it's something that builds the
Yeah. No,
characters.
I feel
Whereas
you. No, I feel you. It's similar to that episode with Kira and Odo stuck in that cave. That one for me is a little bit more of a cheat because okay, he opens up his whole heart to her, blah blah. That could be like impactful for both of them, and then it ends up, oh, Kira wasn't there the whole time. This one, although it happens in an alternate kind of timeline, but it still happened. Although Jake doesn't remember it, but
right,
it does leave an impact on Cisco and how important his relationship is with his son and things like that. So it's not a complete cheat, but I get what you're saying. Although I did like some stuff that happened in this episode, like we got Commander Nog. It also I don't.
yeah,
I imagine it was consciously done, where they really made sure that Cisco was never with a white woman. And it's kind of interesting that Jake marries a black Bajoran because you don't see a lot of them. So I thought that was like a
yes, yes. I thought the same thing, dude.
yes. But I think that was important at the time. Like they really wanted to make sure. Look, we want to show a strong black family unit, and we're gonna keep it black, even if it's a Bajoran. She's got to be a black Bajoran. Um, and as I was watching it, I was feeling a little bit like you. Oh, well, this is not real. This is in an alternate universe. Blah blah blah. And of course, Cisco's gonna come back. But what gets me is that last scene where Tony Todd is an old man and Cisco's holding him like he's still his little boy. It's so bizarre
Yeah.
visually, but the emotions are so crazy. It's like it's just it's heartbreaking like that part where Jake is willing to do that much for his dad and the connection that he has. So for me, you know heavy episode, 4.5 stars. If you're gonna go sappy and emotional every once in a while between all the crazy Dominion shit, you better do it right, and this episode did it right. Moving ahead, but another episode that kind of digs into character, okay, character building, um, and it's the Hippocratic Oath, okay, and
Hmm.
thank goodness they're starting to write Bashir a little bit better this season, and will continue to do so. This is a story by Nicholas Correa and Lisa Klink, teleplay by Lisa Klink, directed by Rene Auberjonois. I think I pronounced his name right for once. Bashir and O'Brien talking to each other. It smells like a garbage dump. I'm sorry I couldn't find a nicer place to crash land. Should we try again? Um, so there's an accident that allows Jem'Hadar soldier named Goran Agar to free himself of the drug dependency that keeps the Jem'Hadar masses under direct control of the founders. He captures Bashir and O'Brien, ordering them to help him in his mission to free his military unit from the drug as well. So this episode gets into something um, kind of interesting as far as the Jem'Hadar is concerned, where they're more than just foot soldiers. Apparently, they have a mind of their own. They have a little bit of agency, and it makes them interesting bad guys moving on to the season. So that part, yes, definitely affects the rest of the season, or the series. But the crux of this episode is that as they're stuck down here on this planet and are ordered to figure out what is it about this planet that allowed Goron Agar to not need the drug. Okay, he's been stranded on this planet for 4 years. um, O'Brien's like having none of it. O'Brien's like, yo, we gotta escape. Whereas Bashir, which thus the title of the episode, he's under the Hippocratic Oath. And he's like, no, it's my duty to help this Jem'Hadar try to, live, survive. I'm not gonna try to just escape and leave him to just die here or whatever. So that's pretty much the episode. There's not much that's happening. There's a little bit of a the B plot is with Commander Worf acclimating to DS9. He's not the chief of security anymore. He finds Quark dealing with a smuggler and frustrates Odo because Odo was trying to, he was setting that whole thing up, and actually Worf screws up his whole plan. And Cisco hears about it. So later, Cisco explains to Worf that life on Deep Space Nine has many gray areas that will take some getting used to. And I think this is the Cisco
Mm-hmm.
speaking to Worf, but also speaking to the audience. Like TNG is officially over at this point, so we don't even have that anymore. And now you are on this gray area Star Trek. This is not your granddaddy's or your daddy's Star Trek. Um, but the main storyline is what takes up most of the time, and I thought it was pretty damn good. It gets a little repetitive, of like, should we escape? Should we not escape? What are you doing? Blah blah blah. Da, 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 da. But it does have a nice ending, uh, which is O'Brien going against Bashir's wishes, and when they're on the runabout, O'Brien explains, "Look, I went against your wishes, I went against your orders, but it was to save you." And Bashir gives him this look like he's really disappointed, which was kind of a nice touch because they're butt buddies, and it was cool. I think they had like this throwaway line, like quick line about uh, I'm a little tired to play darts tonight. And Bashir's like, yeah, I wasn't much in the mood either, or vice versa. So it was kind of nice development between these two characters. But most important for me, Pete, is Bashir, which I'm telling you, at least first time I watched this series, which was a while ago, I don't know if I'll have the same feelings this time, but by the end of DS9, this character that I thought was such a waste of a character became like my favorite Doctor, in all of Star Trek. I've watched a lot of Star Trek, guys, and the development that they give him is incredible. In episodes like this, is what he should, he should have been doing earlier, instead of like having midlife crisis through most of season three. I thought it was really well written, and it showed his what's his name, Alexander Siddiq's range, his acting ability. What are your feelings on this one?
Yeah, the centerpiece for this really was not so much the ethical dilemma, but the conflict between Bashir and O'Brien. Because I
Yes.
mean, like O'Brien he's militant, man. He's like, you do not fucking help these people. And I think for Bashir, it's not even so much the Hippocratic Oath, even pardon me, even though that's the title of the episode. I think it's because he sees that like there's a real advantage to getting these people off this drug. If they're not dependent on the drug, then maybe they're not serving the Dominion, and that's a huge advantage for us. And he takes it so far as he actually pulls rank on O'Brien, and I think that's
Hmm.
where shit gets real. Like he's like, I'm ordering you to help me as your superior officer, which he's never done. So that was a really big moment.
Yes.
There's also the fact, and I don't know if they ever touch on this in the future, but I think they do because they have followed up on this a little since then. And that's the fact that they think there's a property on the planet that has allowed the head Gem Hadar guy to not be addicted. And it turns out that's not the case. Like, no,
Yep.
he beat it. He beat it on his
So just a
own. So that this
genetic
is a
fluke.
possibility. Yeah. So it's something that's possible. It's something to the Federation's advantage. And of course, what ultimately winds up happening is that O'Brien basically mutinies he sabotages Bashir's work, and they have to get the fuck out of Dodge before the Jem'Hadar kill them all. And yeah, it was kind of a bleak ending because I'm with Bashir on this. I think like okay, you have your duties as a doctor, but also your duties as a Federation officer. It is in your interests to actually help get these people off the drug. O'Brien sees it as aiding the enemy, but it's not really aiding the enemy because they're out of the loop, man. And if you can make this thing take off, I mean, who knows what could happen? So I really felt Bashir's frustration in this. Like,
Yes, me
it's
too.
bad enough having to deal with the Jem'Hadar or like the friendliest people, but his best friend is like actively undermining him and being a total douche nozzle throughout the whole thing.
Yeah,
So
he was a
yeah,
bit
good
frustrated.
episode for those two. I did really like the Worf subplot too because
What? Oh, did we lose Peter? Mm, we haven't had internet malfunction in a while. Let me try to he's trying to recalibrate his internet there. Uh, but yeah, just to piggyback on everything Peter was saying with the moment, this is just a showcase of Bashir and O'Brien. They've been in similar situations before. There was the episode, I guess it was a season two, where they were stuck together, and that was the beginning of their love affair. But it's cool to see chinks in the armor. And the beginning of season four has been about chinks in the armor. And like Cisco says at the end to Worf, there's a lot of gray area in DS9. And sometimes you might want to chop off your best friend's head and really not be having a good time with him or her at that time. So it fits, and it fits O'Brien's character because O'Brien has shown throughout the series that he can be a bit racist, you know, and which I think is also a cool thing that's in Star Trek Deep Space Nine is that these aren't these perfect humans where everybody's perfectly evolved. They have flaws, and O'Brien definitely has flaws because he just sees them as the enemy, and he feels this way about the Cardassians, and he definitely feels this way about the Jem'Hadar. He has zero reason to stop and think about this at a more on a more nuanced level. O'Brien is just not a nuanced guy. That's how he's written. He's supposed to be like just the everyday man. And what would the everyday man do? Hey, that's the enemy. Let's not. I mean, maybe we don't have to kill them. I guess that's the part that's more evolved. But we don't have to help them either, right? So Peter, I imagine, is reconnecting here, guys. It's one of those nights. It's one of those nights. It's but anyhow, and I do like that the Jem'Hadar was creating his own moral structure. So the Jem'Hadar are interesting bad guys in Deep Space Nine because they could easily or could have easily fallen into the just bad for being bad. But the writers managed to put some nuance into the Jem'Hadar and make it so that they're able to be negotiated with, they're able to be talked to, they're able to be persuaded to do something if they see that it's in their best interest. And we'll see more of that as the series continues. There he is. Peter's logging back on. Let me add him to the stream. There we go. So Pete, pretty much that everything you said I agree with. I was just mentioning how everything you said about O'Brien, I was feeling, but it fit his character because O'Brien is just this everyday man, and he's not perfect, and he's got a little bit of racism in him, which I like. I like that they don't make him a perfect evolved human, in that has no love for the Cardassians. He has no love for the Jem'Hadar. You know, the only evolution is perhaps he doesn't want to kill them on sight, but he doesn't have to help them either. So it fit his character, although he was being a complete ass. And I totally agree with you that he just wasn't thinking straight. He was being very emotional. But anyway, folks, we're gonna move ahead because we got a couple more episodes to go, and we're going into Indiscretion, an episode that aired on October 23rd, 1995. Teleplay by Nicholas Correa, story by Tony Marbury and Jack Trevino, directed by Geordie himself, LeVar Burton, who ends up being a pretty decent Star Trek director. He's directed a handful of episodes for both Deep Space Nine and Voyager. And Kira to Dukat, Captain Cisco is right. You are in love with the sound of your own voice. And I remember Pete talking about this episode on his Facebook page. So I'll let him go if his internet's working. Are you there, Pete? Can you tell us a little bit about this episode, Indiscretion? If not, I may have to do it because I don't hear Pete. I don't hear Pete. Well, I'll start here and you can hop in when you're better connected. But basically, here, guys, Major Kira, she gets this information from a Bajoran smuggler that he found a piece of metal that might be from this old ship called the Ravenok, and it's a Cardassian ship that disappeared some years ago, and Bajoran prisoners died on it, including some of Kira's friends. So she's allowed to go off and investigate, but the Cardassians are like, "Hey, you're not doing this on your own. This is our ship, so we're sending Gold Dukat with you." And that's when we get, classic DS9 trope is you just put two people together that should never be in the same room together, but they make it work. They make it work. Um, but when they get to this planet, Kira does discover some graves, and uh, but there were more people on the ship, so they figure, hey, there's more people alive. But Dukat, he's trying to identify bodies. They're like, what's going on here? And it ends up that he is overcome with grief when he opens, one of the graves and identifies one of his former lovers, a Bajoran woman. And that becomes important because we know that in the end, Dukat does have a little thing for some Bajoran tail, and he's totally in love with Kira. He's eating that ass. But who wouldn't? Kira is just not a visitor, man. She's gorgeous, still is. Um, but the story takes on a twist, man. There's a twist in this story. And what's the twist? Is that Dukat had a daughter with this mistress. Okay? This young girl named Tora Zayel. Okay? And she might be among the survivors. But what is the twist? Beyond that one is that if he finds this daughter alive, he's gonna have to kill her to protect his uh, his political power and his family and everything and his whole career. And Kira's like, "Are you sick? Are you insane?" And this is more Deep Space Nine masterwork, not only in the writing but the acting, because you're just starting to warm up to Dukat in this episode because you're like, he starts crying and you're like, he had a Bajoran mistress and maybe he's got some humanity, as in him. And then he just turns around the next minute and he's like, yeah, I'm going to kill my own daughter because I need to protect my career. And Kira's not having any of it. They end up working together to free Bajoran and Cardassian prisoners from the Breen, which remind me a lot of these aliens from Star Wars. Peter would know best because he's the Star Wars fanboy. Uh, and they do find the daughter, and he's ready to kill her until she gives us this look of like, Dad, are you really gonna do this to me? And we get that humanity back. Dukat isn't totally evil, at least not at this point. And he decides that, hey, I'd rather have my daughter with me than all the gold and everything, the accolades of my position and my power. So he's willing to forego all of that or forsake all of that in order to make sure that his daughter's okay. So that's a lovely little moment. There is a side plot with Benjamin Sisko in Cassidy Yates where he learns that she has been offered a job on Bajor. It might be moving to the station, and instead of being happy for her, Cisco, well, he says everything wrong. And that's actually kind of a funny scene. Oh, there you go. Pete's back. And I'm sure he'll have a lot to say about this episode. But there is a pretty funny scene there where they're having dinner, and Cisco's not sure if he wants to take things seriously with Yates, you know? And when she's talking about, moving to the station, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, oh, that's a big best. That's a big move. In Cisco, he just scores out heavy with Yates, and he makes her not accept her job. And it takes till he gets relationship advice from Dax and Bashir, and they both agree that it's a big step, a very big step. And that's the line that he says to her. That's a big step that Yates was not super fan of. And then Jake even gives the old man some sound advice about Cassidy. It's her decision to move. You can't force things. And if you're scared and it doesn't go well, you're gonna feel responsible. That's basically, Jake talking to Dad. He's a very smart boy. Uh, Yates says to Cisco later, where they do reconcile. But it's all the drama, all the goods, and Ducat being more than one dimensional as a villain is what makes this episode really score high for me. But the whole Cisco, who is usually so self assured, so in command of everything, totally out uh, character here because he's in love with Yates and he doesn't want to ruin it. And uh, it's a cute little B plot that doesn't get in the way of the uh, intensity of the A plot. It's all about family this episode. What do you think here, Peter? We're talking about the episode called A, where
Yes.
Ducat decides that
Yes.
he wants to kill his own daughter.
Uh, yeah, yeah. This is, I think, one of my. I'm almost done season 4, and this has been one of my favorite episodes of the season, actually. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Apologies for the internet, actually. It was out there for like a good 10 minutes. I'm not sure what happened there, just one of those days. But at any rate, I mean, first of all, just the very idea of this episode is crazy to begin with because, as we've talked about before, one characteristic of the show is you just take two characters that don't fit well together and put them in a completely oddball situation and let's see what happens. And I mean, what two characters are more mismatched than Kira and Ducat? Like,
Yes.
she literally hates his guts. And because why
Mm-hmm.
does she hate his guts? Because he's evil. That's why.
Yes.
So it's a very odd pairing. Like, she's a professional, she goes along with it. And as they're traveling, she kind of starts to see like this other side to him that's more human. And this is really revealed when they find the crash shuttle that they're looking for. And well, first of all, she realizes that he had a lover on the shuttle, and that
Oh,
it was
yes.
Bajoran. Yeah, that he had a Bajoran lover on the
And
shuttle,
this only
and then
confirms. This
like
only.
he
I was gonna say, Pete. This only confirms that he wants to fuck the shit out of Kira too.
this becomes like blatantly obvious in a later Kira
Yes.
Ducat team up in the season. But
Yes.
yeah, he likes a spunky woman. But at any, or maybe he's just got a Bajoran fetish. Who knows? Uh, but yeah, and he's genuinely sad when he finds her body. Then he reveals that he's got a daughter, and Kira's like, she comes around. She's like, wow, there's more to this guy than I thought. Like he's really not such a bad guy. He's got a daughter. She's half Bajoran. We got to help this girl. And then just like a complete 180 swerve, he's like, yeah, I got to find my daughter so I can kill her because, man, if the Cardassians find out about this, my wife's going to leave me. I'm going to be stripped of my rank. My career is going to go to shit. We got to kill this bitch. And you can see Kira's jaw just like go down to her knees. She's like, you motherfucker. You almost had me. You almost had me.
I know.
So,
They no, he almost had me.
yeah,
Credit
I
to
know.
Mark Alimo, however you pronounce his last name. Cause he almost had me, man. Like I was like, okay, we're getting to see the softer side, and then it's like, yeah, but I'm gonna kill my daughter.
Yeah, yeah. But the thing is, though, of course, he doesn't, and his daughter actually winds up becoming a pretty major character on the show. So
Oh, for
this
sure.
is an
Yes.
important episode in terms of laying the groundwork for future things. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, just a great episode, great development of Ducat as a character. Great idea to pair him and Kira. Great introduction of what's her face. What's his daughter's name again? She's been on
Um,
like 5 or 6 episodes. Z Ziao Ziao.
ZL. Yeah.
Yeah,
No, for
yeah,
sure, for sure.
and
No, I
it
dug this one, and
develops
the
the
brain,
relationship. But yeah, it
and
develops
Pete,
the
the
relationship
brain.
between yes,
I was gonna ask you when you were gone. I'm sorry to cut you
yeah,
off, but I'm
yeah,
curious
it's
because you're
okay.
more of a Star Wars fan than me. The brain looked just like one of those Star Wars aliens. I can't remember which one. Which one do they look like?
You'll have to find an image. Is
Oh yeah, because they
I
got
don't
the
remember what
helmet
they
thing
look like
going on. There
actually.
you go. I found an image. Every once in a while in Deep Space Nine, it seems like they were having a little bit of fun, and they would put some Star Wars looking alien. There you go. It's the brain, and it's just the UBC, I guess. There you go. And they got a similar style, similar style. Star Wars, the Bosch, and Star Trek, the Breen. They're very similar looking little aliens there. But they're the ones that have both the Cardassians and the Bajoran in slave camps. Um, yeah, a lot of twists in this one, which I like because I didn't see that coming. I knew the daughter was going to come in, but I had totally forgotten that this was the episode and this is how it happened. And it just totally took me for a loop because I'm like, at first, you're like, okay, the twist is that definitely Ducat is there for something, but you think it's the wife. And he's like, okay, I'm just going to cover this up. She was never here. And that's the end of that. That's the reason I tagged along to just, like they say here in Brazil, queimar arquivo, you burn the files. Um, and then you're like, oh, shit, he's got a daughter with this woman. So credit to the writers there. They had me going for this one. And we would be remiss to skip, Pete, the scene where they do connect a little bit, which is when them I'm referring to Kira and Ducat when he sits on was that a thorn or something, and they just have a good laugh about it. And Ira Stephen Bear
Yeah,
said something about this, because some people don't like this. They're like, oh, Kira hates this guy's guts. Why would you be laughing with this guy? But Ira Stephen Bear comments. He says that there are moments in life when you can be with someone with whom you have nothing in common, who you have nothing but disdain for, and then something happens, a moment of shared experience or shared laughter, and it just changes the playing field. It doesn't mean that you become friends afterwards. It doesn't mean that you've broken through to a new level of understanding that'll be with you. for the rest of your lives, but something has changed. It's a bonding moment. And though it's probable that neither of them would ever discuss it after this, their relationship will never be quite the same. They started to see each other as people. And that is important because you see that Kira does change her view or her way of reacting to Ducat a little bit. She doesn't love him.
Yeah.
There's a
Well,
little
she also becomes friends with Zian, and that makes it
that
difficult because
ex-
you don't want to be like trashing the kid's father to her. Like she loves the guy.
exactly, and that relationship adds to the humanity of Ducat because Ciel sees him as dad. She doesn't see him as occupier and slave camp labor controller or whatever. She sees him as dad, and she's able to. Well, I don't know if she's able to, but she does throw some of that in Kira's face, and it allows Kira to maybe. I don't know. She doesn't. It's not like she likes Ducat now, but maybe she's able to operate with him on that level. It's like when I see him, I'm gonna think of like he's been a good dad, and I can think of that one good quality of his, so that I don't snap his neck on sight, you know. So it's kind of interesting, and it goes into what we were talking about at the beginning, or I was talking about, which is I was afraid, when Worf came on because he takes over tactical. She was a tactical officer. Is Kira's character going to be diminished? And instead, they just take her into this other journey of herself and figuring out who she is, which is a little bit of a thread that's been going on since season one, of her moving past just being this angry warrior. It's like, no, well, you're not a human. You're a Bajoran. You're a full person, and you have much more depth than just I shot at people. So good episode overall. Great episode, in fact, not even good, and it does build a lot, as far as things that will go into the future. And now we're going into an episode, guys, called Rejoined. And it premiered on October 30th, Halloween Eve, 1995. So played by Ronald D. Moore and Renee Echeverria. Story by Renee Echeverria. Directed by Mr. Brooks himself, first name Avery. And we got a line here, Cisco to Dax. You came here for advice from a friend, and that's exactly what you're getting. Um, and this episode is for all the Star Trek is too woke, folks, to cry about because it's famous for being the first on screen lesbian kiss in Star Trek history between Dax and a former lover. So it's kind of a convoluted little storyline, but it's not as important as the character moment here. So the Trills are on the space station because they're doing these wormhole experiments, and you're like, okay, whatever. But where do things get complicated? Is the one of the women that come on board? Her name is Peter Linara Khan. Okay, she's one of the head scientists, but she's a Trill who happens to have one of the symbiotes inside of her that used to be married to one of Dax's former symbionts. And there's this whole politics, and regulations in the Trill world where two people like that should not be together, should not be in close proximity because it can bring up a lot of um confusion, because the whole point of being a Trill is that your life moves forward. You still have the memories of the old host inside of you, but you become this new person. So it would be retrograde for you to try to live out the life of one of your former hosts. And the other Trill that are there are not too happy when they see that Dax and this Dr. Khan are getting very chummy with each other. And in the end, the inevitable happens is that they admit that, God damn it, we are in love. We have not lost these feelings for each other. And if they actually come out and admit this, there's going to be a lot of really bad repercussions to the point where um, they would be exiled from their homeworld and their symbiotes would never be joined with a new host. The symbiote would die. And Cisco actually reminds Dax of this when she comes to him for advice. But so lovely is that he also says that, look, I'm going to support you either way. Khan and Dax continue to work on their experiments. And, Khan is injured in this explosion that happens. But Dax rigs a force field across a plasma fire that allows her to reach Khan, coming to the relationship, coming to the relationship, coming to the realization that the relationship is worth exile. But Khan, in the end, is the one that's like, man, I can't do this. We need to work on these experiments. This is more important than our relationship. So Dax is left heartbroken again, because last time she was heartbroken was in the Brigadoon episode, as Pete wisely pointed out. Um, and that's pretty much it. But yeah, I don't think it's like the best episode. It kind of drags a little bit, in fact. But the issues that they were dealing with in this episode, the bring it up a notch for me and put it, not upper tier, but up above, mid range tier as far as a Star Trek episode. And of course, we cannot, skip the fact that, hey, we're dealing with something that Star Trek throughout its run in the next generation just would not touch, which was gayness. And a lot of fans really have some resentment of TNG for this. They blame it a lot on Braga, I believe it was the producer at the time, who was very homophobic, very sexist. In fact, he's one of the reasons why Dax leaves the show. Spoilers, but Terry Farrell does leave the show and blames him for it. Actually, what's the girl that plays Tasha Yar? She also has a really terrible story to tell about this guy, how he ripped out her communicator uh, when she was let off the show, Denise Crosby. So a lot of the reason why DS9 got a lot better is because these guys moved on to do Voyager. And surprise, surprise, in Voyager, we get the hot bombshell Fembot. So you see where these guys' heads were at that time. So a lot of folks were like, hey, DS9 actually at least tried. They weren't direct with it, but they did it in their sci-fi way. Tried to touch the the topic of homosexuality in the future. TNG actually does have an episode like this, and it's fucking wacky, where Beverly Crusher meets a Trill, and they fall in love. Just that the Trill dies, the slug gets put inside of Riker, and at the time, the mythos weren't all set in stone, so they were able to do that. And then Riker takes on the personality of this new guy, which is weird for Beverly. She's like, wait, I'm in love with this guy. You're acting just like him, but you're Riker. Uh, but she's willing to kind of go there. But then when they find an actual host, because Riker was just kind of like this substitution until they found an actual Trill to put the host in, it's a woman. And Beverly totally rejects her. And it's like, good Lord, guys. Like, they didn't do a very good job. And there's another episode in TNG too, where Riker falls in love with this alien who comes from a species where they assign you your gender at a certain point. And this girl is, well, not a girl, but this alien decides, hey, I identify as a woman. And she falls in love with Riker. And Riker goes against all Starfleet regulations by trying to interfere with this culture, blah, 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 blah. It's all the Star Trek stuff that happens. And in the end, this girl, what she identifies as a girl, decides, hey, I'm going to follow the tradition of my people and just become an it or whatever they assign me. So again, two major storylines in Star Trek TNG that could have really brought the conversation forward in a nice way, and instead it's like, yeah, we don't recognize you as a individual, and you don't have the choice to choose your sexual identity. And the other one is like, yeah, you're a bitch now. I'm not into that weird stuff. Go, the relationship is off. In DS9, they're doing something else. They're like, not only do I accept you regardless of what you choose, we're gonna have some lesbian kissing, and it's not like a 1 second peck on the cheek. It's it's some hot and heavy kissing going on in this episode. So for those reasons alone, for the moving that what do you call it, the compass or whatever, moving the little thing forward a little bit, I give it scores. I'm curious as to what Pete. Oh, I thought he was on the stream this whole time. Sorry, Pete. Now you're on. I'm curious as to what Pete thinks about this episode, other than it's really hot to see Dax hook up with another girl. Because that is hot, though.
Yeah, yeah. It was a pretty strange one, especially because like um, the way the trill thing works. It's like I believe Khan was actually a woman when they were in a relationship before,
Yes.
but Dax was a man,
Mm-hmm.
and I believe like the host died doing something stupid. Um,
Mm-hmm.
not listening to his wife. He died because he didn't listen to his wife. Did something dumb. So they have like a lot of regrets, a lot of unaired dirty laundry to work out too, I guess. So there's that whole bit about, if you lost somebody that you loved, like what would you say to them? And I think that's really the catalyst for their almost rekindling the romance. But then you have to look at the reasons for why that's forbidden, and are the consequences fair? Because that the trolls are kind of a spiritual people. They believe in, they're almost like kind of Buddhist, like with the reincarnation thing. Like you leave your past life and you move on and you reincarnate in your next one. And in order to do that, you have to let go of all your prior attachments, or it doesn't work. And it's weird that Cisco is like the voice of reason in this, but I think he's actually kind of selfish in this because his friend, I mean, it's Jadzia to an extent, but his friend is actually Dax, the symbiote. And he's like, man, if you do this, like, Dax never gets another life. That's the end of the line for him. And I don't think that's right, but I think that's also Cisco being a bit selfish about losing his friend. Or probably not losing his friend because Dax will probably still outlive him, but about that being the end of the road for the symbiote. So he's actually more concerned about that than Jadzia is. A lot of interesting ideas, but I think the thing is, we know where it's going from the beginning. We know how it's going to turn out. And as a result, there's not really a lot of drama to it
Mm-hmm.
there, but that's all we're going to do. We're just going to put them out there. We're not actually going to take it more than you would in a 45-minute episode. We'll sort of put it out there, give people things to think about, but at the end of 45 minutes, it's going to be over and we shall never speak of this again.
Yeah, I feel you on that. I think that's the weak point of this episode. Definitely. Because yeah,
Like
they
if
don't just
Khan had become
don't
like a
talk about.
recurring character or something, that might have been different. But I don't know that we ever see her again. So
Peter, I forgot. Look at this. We need to be our Trekkie cards need to be. taken away from us. Because look, today, September 8th, 1966, Star Trek debuted for the first time on television with the Mad Trap. So today is officially Star Trek Day.
Ooh,
Totally forgot about it, you know. So happy Star Trek Day, anybody that's listening. And there's a bunch of
already.
events. There's Star Trek Marathon begins, Star Trek Day panels, Star Trek Marathon resumes, Star Trek Day pub quiz, Star Trek Day panels replay. So you can be, they have a bunch of panels and stuff. So live long and prosper, guys. Wow. How many years is that? How long has Star Trek been in our collective pop consciousness? 66. You're good at math. How many years is that? We're in 2002 minus 1966. We have 56 years of Star Trek. Look at that.
Uh, 56. 56, I think.
Yeah, 56.
2000,
So cool.
2022.
Very nice. Very nice. So there you go, guys.
Yep.
Yeah, and Pete, I agree with you. I think that's where this episode fails a little bit. Is that it went there, but it didn't go there, you know? And if we get a chance, and I do want us to review All We Left Behind after we finish doing all of Star Trek Deep Space Nine. This is a really good documentary. And all the writers of the show pretty much said that that was their only regret, that they touched on so many heavy topics from race to poverty to religion to terrorism, and they wish that they would have just not been afraid to go all in on the gay themes, you know, because it was there. It was there for the taking, but they
Right.
didn't take it. And in Dax, it's a little bit lost at the beginning of this season. Not much going on with Dax. She's not my favorite character, but you know she does have some interesting moments. And I don't know if they knew what to do with her. I mean, other than it's clear from the moment Worf walks in that she is into him, and that definitely uh, becomes something as the seasons wear on. But yeah, it's a weird episode because I feel like you do. Like for me, it feels like it could be a throwaway episode, except that it's not really because it's a pretty big moment in Star Trek history to have a big old gay kiss there. But anyway, let's move on because we do got a lot of episode
Yeah,
to get
but
to.
whenever they do that though, it's always the girls, man. It's always because I know what they're thinking. It's like, okay, like two guys kissing, that is gonna like put a lot of people off, right? But
Yes.
two girls kiss, it's like they're gay, but they're gay in a hot way, so it's okay.
Of course, you know, and that's like the first step, I guess. It's like you gotta give them an E for effort. But well,
Yeah.
yeah, like the Trek fans' brains melted because they saw what the Dr. Kohlberg and Stamets brushing their teeth together and giving each other a peck. They don't even make out. They give each other little pecks on the
No,
lips,
no, I know.
and it's like what the fuck, you know, like they just lose their collective brains because of these two dudes that are a happy married couple. So you know, it is what it is. Anyway, moving on, we got Rejoined is an episode that premiered also
That's
on,
the
oh
one we
no,
just did. That's the one we
yes,
just
that's
did.
why I'm getting
We're on
confused here.
Starship Down now.
Yes, and Jammer's site got a little weirded out because he put Little Green Men before Starship Down. So Starship Down here I have premiere date November 13th, 1995, written by David Mack and John J. Ordover, and directed by Alexander Singer. And here's a big long quote here from O'Brien and engineer Stevens. The captain has got us out of tougher spots than this. Last year, when the Romulans tried to invade the Founder's homeworld, we went up against a dozen Jem'Hadar ships. I know, Chief, you've told me the story. Well, unless you want to hear it again, you better get down to the torpedo bay and start working on those probes. Um, the story is the story is a collision of about four disaster movies. according to Jammer here.
Yeah.
But the flawless plot, assembly, and impressive technical credits will make you forget the shortcomings. When that episode of Star Trek Strange New Worlds premiered, where um, they were stuck in I
The
think the
Gorn
Gorn were after
episode.
them or something.
Yeah.
A lot of people mention this
Yeah.
episode. They're like, "Oh, it felt like Starship Down," and I didn't remember what this episode was. So when I watched it, I definitely saw the similarities, and I think I like this one a little better than the Gorn one. Although I thought that was one of the better episodes of Strange New Worlds. But yeah, basically, guys, they're stuck out there in the coldness of space, and they get attacked by some Jem'Hadar ships, and they got to figure out a way to get out of that situation. Um, because here, the yeah, they're doing some trading and stuff. They're just going out there. What is it? Let me read here. It says that the senior staff of Deep Space Nine are going into the Gamma Quadrant to settle trade arrangements with the Karema representative. The Dominion's not really into it, so the talks take place secretly in orbit around the gas giants and are mediated by Quark, in which Hanok is not a big fan of. And who plays Hanok? Do you know?
I do not.
Because he was very familiar looking. I was
No.
like,
Let me
this guy
just
looks
check here.
familiar. Unless I'm mistaken episodes here, which I
Oh
could
shit!
be.
Yeah, it's James. Yeah.
Cromwell, yes, Cromwell. I was like, this guy looks so
Yeah. No.
familiar.
No. It's
Who is
James
this guy?
Cromwell.
And at first, it's weird because at first I thought it was Rene Auberjonois playing a different role because they got a similar kind of gruffy style to them. I was like, no, that's
Yeah.
James
So did
Cromwell.
I. So did I. They look very
Yes,
similar.
they did. And then I had to look it up, and I was like, oh, no, that's James Cromwell, who we all know is a Trek fan who was in First Contact. Um, but yes, so there's that little subplot going on, and then all of a sudden, the Jem'Hadar they fire on the Chimera ship, and then they chase the ship into the atmosphere, and the Defiant takes pursuit, and that's where the episode pops off because they fire on the Defiant, crippling it. And how do we get out of the situation? And then in the midst of this, Jadzia and Dr. Bashir are out there trying to repair the engines, and they get stuck in their little mission down there. Cisco gets knocked out, and most of the episode, Kira is just praying over him in his consciousness. And really, the best part of the episode,
Yeah.
Quark and Hanok stuck in the mess hall. And Hanok is just chewing Quark
Yeah.
out for just being a liar and a thief and this and that. But Quark, in a way, is able to convince him that, look, being a liar and a cheat and taking risks is how you get things done. And they have to do it because one of the
Yeah.
torpedoes actually breaks through the hull of the ship,
Yes.
and they gotta disarm it, and they gotta work together to disarm it. And also Worf's in there, O'Brien, they're working to put the engines back together. So there's a little subplot with Worf trying to learn how to be a better delegator, mediator, handing out orders because they're all scared shitless of Worf. And O'Brien's like, man, you got to
Yeah.
be more tactful when you're dealing with engineering. They're not red shirts. They're not going to just listen to orders. You got to make them feel like they got shit to do. Which, by the way, Pete, before I let you go and give your thoughts on this, there's in the Star Trek mythos, post DS9 and everything, because they have books and everything, just like Star Wars, comic books and books. Worf becomes captain, so stuff like this is interesting. And I just watched an
Yeah.
episode, I think last night or a couple nights ago, where Dwarf's on trial for having shot at a ship without, seeing what it was. Anyway, at the end, Cisco also gives him a little talk, like, what was your error? What did you do wrong? Blah blah blah.
Yeah.
It's kind of building this other facet of Worf, which is why I say DS9 just wrote Worf better, of Worf maturing into a Starfleet officer, and not just any Starfleet officer, but a future captain, and knowing how to mediate, how to treat, talk to people the right way to get things done. So these are just sprinklings of that, of Worf having to learn that now you're not just the guy standing behind Picard in shooting when Picard says fire. You got more responsibilities. You're in command now. You're wearing a red shirt. You're not security. So kind of cool, these little sprinklings that happen throughout. But what do you think of this episode, Starship Down? Starship Down, right? Uh-oh. Did I lose my man at just the right moment? I might have.
Right.
Oh, no, he's there. I hear you breathing. Captain, we're experiencing communications problems. Oh, he's there. Pete's there. Um, well,
Yeah,
while
it was pretty intense. I actually fell asleep. Yeah, yeah. I fell asleep watching it. No, I'm here. No, I'm here. Yeah. So, yeah. So I fell asleep watching this the first time I watched it, but dude, I'm here. I'm here. Hello, hello, hello.
Peter, keep talking because you're hearing my messages 5 minutes
I
later.
am.
That's why
Yeah,
I'm not talking because you're
I
responding
can hear
to
you just
I'm
fine.
here, I'm here when I was asking you like 3 minutes ago. So I'm not saying anything. So you can just go.
Hello, hello, hello. Okay. Okay. All right. All right. All right. So I fell asleep watching this the first time, but I guess I was just tired because I went back and I rewatched it, and yeah, it's really good. I kind of agree with the disaster movie comparison, but it actually reminded me a lot more. Same with the Gorn episode. It reminded me of this old submarine movie with Robert Mitchum and Burt Lancaster. It's about these two submarine commanders in World War II who are just kind of flying blind against each other, and yeah, they fuck each other up, but they don't really know what they're doing. There's all this drama going on in the submarines, and I think that might have actually been a real inspiration for this because there are a lot of similarities. um, the Quark stuff was definitely the best. Like because when the missile comes at them, there's like, oh shit, that's it, man. Shields are down. The missile hits. Like we're all gonna die. But it doesn't blow up.
That is scary. You see the missile just sticking halfway out. That is scary.
So they're stuck there with this big ass missile that they got to do something about. Much trouble. Got a concussion, business, but just
Oh,
freaking
Pete,
out.
you're cutting out.
Why
You're
is
cutting
the
out.
emissary can't die?
Pete's getting emotional here, but he's
She
cutting out,
wrote an
folks.
emissary a few episodes. To him personally, it's just religious.
Pete's cutting out.
We had and cheer. Like like
Well, Pete's having a
my
moment.
God, like a few years ago, I would have anything to be stuck alone with you in your arms for a few hours. And she's like, well, what about now? And he's like, well, do I got a shot? So that was kind of a cute moment. Um, and yeah, the stuff in engineering was all really good too. What I liked about it actually is that after O'Brien tells Worf to ease up on the engineers, at the end he gives them shit too. He's like, "Get to it, boys! You heard the man."
Yes, but they're pumped up. But they're pumped up.
Okay, I'm sorry. Ba, 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 ba. Well, what else can I say? I
Now you're
like the
back.
fact that Quark teaches Hanuk about greed. Greed is good. So yeah, big thumbs up for this one. Big thumbs up.
Greed is good. Yeah, you cut out a lot during that segment, but if you smoke some weed, it'll sound it'll sound good. If you, just this last 5 minutes there, it'll be like traveling through the wormhole, talking to the wormhole aliens.
Okay.
Anyway, let's finish up because the internet's not that great tonight. So we haven't had a lot of internet malfunctions in a while, but it happens every once in a while. Welcome to Living in Brazil. And we're going to end tonight's episode with a Ferengi episode. Because who doesn't love the Ferengis? And it's Little Green Men. This one premiered on November 6th, 1995. Written by Ira Stephen Bear and Robert Hewitt Wolf. Story by Tony Marbury and Jack Trevino. Directed by James L. Conway. And Quark's like the speed of technological advancement isn't nearly as important as short-term quarterly gains. um, it's not a bad episode. It's
Yeah.
another one we've been suffering from this a little bit with the Ferengi episodes, where they have this one joke and they just try to stretch it out for 40 minutes,
Yeah.
and it doesn't always work. But this one's less painful than the last couple ones we did, which was the Prophet one. Um, in the one where they went to visit the Quark's mom. So it's cute. It's just like it's harmless. They travel back in time because of some space magic, and they end up in Roswell. So it's a cute little tie-in of like, oh, the aliens in Roswell were actually the Ferengi and all that stuff. So that's kind of cute.
Yeah.
It reminded me a little bit of the X Files. I don't know. I'm sure that these guys were all fans of the X Files. This was '95, so it was like at the height of the
Yeah.
X Files. So maybe it was a little bit of a love letter to Chris Carter. But it was
Yeah.
silly.
Very
Not
much like
much.
the X Files, man.
Yes, not a lot happens. They have a few funny bits in there where they can't understand each other because the universal translators, the humans don't have the universal translators, or it's not operating, and then they get it working. And meanwhile, Quark, sorry. Yeah, Quark. Uh, he's thinking, you know, we could dominate this race. This is centuries before they learn how.
No, no,
Well,
not just dominate this race. Like
mhm.
his idea is to contact the Ferengi and update them on all the technology from hundreds of years in the future, and have the Ferengi get the jump on everybody, so that
Pretty
like the
much.
Ferengi are like the most dominant race in the galaxy. Yeah.
Yes, yes. Which again, it's a cute little concept, but Odo was there because he was he was the dog, right?
Quark
Uh
smuggling.
yes. Yes,
Yeah,
again,
yeah, he's the dog in this one.
Yes, and that's the whole thing. That's what gets everything going, right? Because I think Quark put too much of whatever he was smuggling on the ship, because they're gonna take, they're taking not Rom, Nog to Starfleet Academy on their very own
Nog,
ship. So he
taking
takes
him to
this
Starfleet
time.
Academy.
Yes, so they take he uses this opportunity to go smuggle some shit, and in the end, we uh, we get the time anomaly, whatever, and we get sent back in time because it's Star Trek, and you can travel in time easily on Star Trek, in many different ways,
Yep.
including slinging around the sun. So it is what the hell it is. Like I said, nothing to see here, but it's cute. It's cute. Did you like this
Yeah,
one?
I really like the. I did. As an X Files fan, I could totally see the love. Very
Yes.
X Files ish. Um, Interesting how we see these moments with Quark where it's like, okay, he is a good guy, he's got a heart, but man, put him in a situation where he has a business opportunity and he just loses sight of everything. It's like, even Rom's like, "Are you sure this is a good idea, brother? This could seriously fuck the timeline." He's like, "Yeah, well, who cares about the timeline? We're gonna be rich." So it's funny how blinded he gets in these types of situations. I also really like the supporting cast in there. We got Megan Gallagher in there as you got Charles Napier, very veteran actor. He was in the original Batman series with Adam West. Does a great military guy. So I like the supporting cast. Um, and I kind of like how they realize what they got here, but they don't. Like they think they just got aliens, and I think that was
Yes.
one of the cool underlying jokes. They think like, okay, what we've got here are what the
Or
title says,
Martians.
little green men, but
Yes.
they're completely yeah, they're completely clueless that they're actually from the future as well, which makes all the difference in their understanding. There's some nice little moments in this as well, like when Nog is doing his research on human history and he comes across the riots of,
Yes. Oh,
what is it,
yes.
2023. He's like, yeah, this guy looks just like Captain Cisco. That was a nice acknowledgement of that.
Yes. No,
So
it's
yeah,
cool.
definitely was not a
Oh shit. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
not a big fan of the last two Ferengi episodes, so this was a good one. It was a little different.
Yeah,
Yeah, no,
it gets a lot of love here. I'm looking at the on Wiki the reception. Den of Geek ranked this as the fifth best episode of Deep Space Nine. That's a little too high for me. But
yeah,
Empire
and
ranked this as the 36th best out of the 50 episodes of Star Trek television. Hollywood Reporter named it the 18th best episode, so it does get a lot of love. CBR rated it as the 11th funniest episode. Now, director James L. Conway compared the episode to a low budget film he had made called Hangar 18 about the government cover up of a
yeah, I saw
UFO
that
incident.
in the cinemas actually.
Yes, I remember he talked about this.
It's a
And Conway
terrible
noted
movie.
Conway noted that Deep Space Nine did not often do comedy, and there was a tone meeting where showrunner Ira Bear asked, "Are you sure you can get the humor here?" And Conway was confident that the episode would work out fine. But it's definitely a memorable one because it's such a tonal shift in seeing the characters in the past and everything, but like brightly in the past, not like the
Yeah,
darkness and disillusion and destitution of the Bell Riots episode. That speaking of which,
right.
um, so it's kind of it's not just a comedy tone shift, but just the color palette. It's like you're watching a different show, which is kind of cool.
Well, there's a lot of commentary in this episode as well,
Yes,
like about the nuclear testing, like the Ferengis are like, holy shit, you guys are detonating nukes like all the time. What the fuck is wrong with you people? And they give
Exactly.
the Charles Napier character shit for smoking. Like why do humans do this? Like your diet, the way you put shit in your body that is actively harmful to you, the way, right, they talk about selling to the Russians. It's like you're in a perpetual state of global destruction. Like, how the fuck
Yes.
did you ever manage to get past this point? Because everything you do is so self-defeating. So I think the social subtext, I mean, really makes this more than just like a cute little haha Ferengis in the 1950s type episode.
Oh no, they definitely took their opportunity to make some social commentary, and I do like the part where Cork is like, if I don't sell to you, I'll sell the secrets to the Russians, like as his way of gambling, not gambling, bargaining with the humans for the technology and all that stuff. So it's got its moments. I like it. It's not my favorite episode, but it's cute. Much better than what we've been getting out of
Yeah.
the Ferengi. And that's it, folks. We had a little bit of technical difficulties at the end there, but we are good to go. So we looked at the beginning of season 4, episodes 1 through 7. So a lot of episodes tonight. Star Trek Deep Space Nine. So let's do our skip and watch. Strong opening. So I'll be curious to hear what Pete's skips and watches are. Definitely a watch for me. The Way of the Warrior. Uh-oh, did we lose him? Well, I'm
That
gonna
is the
run that.
two-parter at the beginning. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yes, one parter. It's a
No,
one
I'm
parter.
here,
Or is it a two-parter?
but maybe I'm on a delay again.
What was it, a one or two? I thought it was a one-parter. The Way of the Warrior.
No,
Oh my!
it's it's a 90-minute episode.
Oh shit! That's why. Okay.
It's a 90-minute episode.
Okay, they just played it in one like a big old movie. I
Down into
got
two
you.
parts for syndication. Yeah.
Oh, I watched it in one go. That's why I put it there. I didn't put parts 1 or 2. That makes sense because I even mentioned when we were talking, it's incredible that they packed as much into one episode, but it is 2 episodes. It's episode 73 and
Yeah.
74. All right, but I think yeah, for us, at least how I watched it, I saw that as like one big movie, so that's why I got confused. Okay,
Yeah.
uh, and so definitely that's a banger of a fucking season opener. Like we were complaining, well, not complaining, but we
Oh yeah.
at the end of season 3 we're like, well, that's kind of a whimper. It's not a bad episode, the last episode of season 3, but it's just kind of like okay. And then fucking shit, they just opened everything up in this beginning. It's definite watch. What about The Visitor? For me, definite watch, man. Beautiful episode.
Yeah, I gotta hedge my bets on this one. I'm gonna say that it's a good episode if you're a fan of like Ray Bradbury type science fiction. Then you'll probably want to see this, but you could skip it. I'm going to say watch, but I'm definitely going to say that if you skip it, like you're not missing a lot in terms of the overall story. You're missing like a pretty decent individual episode, but you could skip
Yes,
it. I think it's a matter of taste. So I'm going to say
I feel you.
watch, but you could skip it.
Hippocratic Oath. This is a definite watch for me. More character building and more Jemadar building. So they're not just this one-dimensional, baddies. You see a little bit more depth to these Jemadar.
Yeah, yeah. There's actually a really good Jem'Hadar episode later in the season too, where you realize like, holy shit, these guys are like 6, 7 year olds, really. Like they're literally overgrown children.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, definite watch for me. Enjoyed the Bashir O'Brien dynamic and the interesting dilemma that was presented to them and the way it unfolded. So yeah, that's a watch.
And then we got Indiscretion, where we find out that Ducat has a heart until we find out that Ducat is a piece of shit, until we find out that Ducat has a heart. And for me, this is a definite watch. Great episode, and has a lot of repercussions for the rest of the series.
Yeah, yeah, must see TV. One of my favorite episodes of the season. I'm almost done, but I could see this ranking, top three of the season at least. So great episode, great Ducat episode, and as you said, it has repercussions.
Yes, and let's not forget that Cisco has cold feet. But this Cassidy Yates stuff, it seems inconsequential at the start, but pay attention to this Cassidy Yates storyline because it gets heavy, man. It gets heavy. And then we've got Rejoined, where we got some lesbo action.
Ugh,
For me, like I said in my review, guys, it's like
yeah.
it's not a good episode, but it's like an important one just for like TV history and Star Trek history. So I would say watch it just for that. But I feel about this one, I think the way you feel about The Visitor, Pete, where it's like if you don't watch it, it's like whatever. But at the same time, it's got some meaty stuff in there, and at least attempts to have meaty stuff in there. So it's a matter of taste. I'm gonna steal Pete's line for this one, but I'll say watch it. Why not? There's some hot lesbo kissing.
Yeah, yeah, I'm gonna say skip just because it's a bit too soapy, and I mean I
Yeah.
love me a good soap, but I don't necessarily like that kind of stuff mixed with my science fiction. So yeah, it was like way too much feelings and talking, and not enough really happening for me. So say like watching two girls kiss is like something you really haven't seen before. In which case, I don't know what the fuck you're doing. You want to watch that? My God, there's like way better places to see it than Star Trek.
In fact, I got a movie recommendation for you based on that.
You could probably skip this.
Yeah. Well, I got a movie recommendation for you later. Speaking of girls hooking up, it's called The Lord of the G Strings, the female
Oh
ship
yeah,
of the
I
string.
actually still haven't seen the new Paul Verhoeven lesbian nun movie yet.
Okay, well, I'm gonna watch that after we're off, and I'll let you know if it's any good. But it's a rip
Oh, okay,
off
that
of
sounds promising.
Lord
I
of the
was going more
Rings.
towards
If you,
high art actually. Last year,
oh,
Paul
I don't.
Verhoeven put out a movie about lesbian nuns.
What was There was a Netflix show or something like that, or Hulu about like a lesbian nun. That was I know Howard Stern was talking about it for a while. It's just this girl stuck in a convent, but she's got lesbian feelings. I don't know if it's still on, but anyway, we digress. Lesbians. Okay, Starship Down. I dug it. That's a watch. You know, just a little bottle episode, little adventure episode. I dig it. Fighting the Jem'Hadar blind. What do you think?
Yeah, yeah, definite watch. Really good special effects in this one too. You could tell how they
Mhm.
upped the budget because the effects in this look good. Was I cut out there? I thought
And
maybe I was
then
on a time delay. Okay.
what do you?
Yes,
I think you're a
watch.
little bit of
Really
both.
good special effects. You can definitely tell that they They got a little more budget for this season. It showed in this episode.
Yeah, and then finally to end it all, Little
Okay.
Green Men, which is silly, but it's a watch. It's memorable, memorably silly.
Yeah, definite watch for me. I like Quark as a character. I like the X Files, and it definitely paid tribute to the X Files. And it did what time travel episodes should do, really, which is offer a kind of snarky commentary on like all the shit that we've done wrong. So it had humor, it had commentary, and it had quirk. So can't go wrong there. uh, Pretty good batch of episodes, actually. I mean, I would say you could watch them all, and you would be entertained. Just
Dude,
so
I'm
happens
with you.
that
Like,
the Dax episode is the one I could live with the least. So there you go.
I'm with you. I'm with you. Like, what a strong opening to a season. I think probably one of the strongest openings because usually DS9 seasons do open strong, but it'll like putter out around episode four. You know, maybe by the fifth one, it'll be just like some
Yeah,
spatial anomaly episode. But this one was like bang, 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 hit you with the body shot and back up for, you know, a right hook, and it just gave you a little bit of everything. You know, like look, this is what we can do. We can do comedy, you can do a little bit of drama, we can make you cry, we can make you go, oh shit. So, and it's a nice mix of all the characters, except for like I don't think Odo had a big episode in these. I mean, he was in Little Green Men, but I don't think he had a big old episode in his first seven. But so far, as far as we've been reviewing, this is probably my favorite season opener so far. And the kids keep coming, man. I mean, next episode next
right.
week we'll be talking more good stuff, more or less. So that's it, folks. We've been on for a while. Long episode tonight. Next week we will be reviewing less episodes, but we will be here. Have a good night. Live long and prosper, and happy Star Trek Day, which I should have said at the start, but hey, it is what it is. And like and subscribe. I'll be sharing this in a couple groups. Bye.